How to pay for the state's transportation future, highways and bridges, is one of the biggest logjams in the Capitol. The current state budget cuts spending for state transportation programs by 20%, according to the Transportation Secretary. WisconsinEye wanted to take a look at how this plays out for one Wisconsin county. So we are in Crosse County. We have asked County Highway Commissioner Ron Chamberlain to give us a tour of some of the bridges, highways, roads that need repair, and does the Crosse County have the money to pay for them? I see my rides here. I'm going to join Ron Chamberlain. Ron, thanks very much for letting WisconsinEye. Don't keep your eyes on the road here, sir, but thanks for the invitation.
You're welcome.
Talk to us about the relationship between the state Wisconsin Department of Transportation and county highway departments like yours. What's that relationship?
The relationship goes in two ways, Steve. One thing that exists that doesn't exist in any other state in the nation is the counties in the state of Wisconsin are the DOT's maintenance arm. We take care of we're under contract to take care of all of the state roads within each individual county. Over and above that, we have the cooperative relationship of working together for funding and design and construction on the local road system as well. And then furthermore, the state has also worked with us, and we are the local bridge program managers for the state of Wisconsin, again within the county borders.
And then talk to us about the county highway system that you and your department maintain. How many roads, how many bridges?
We have 285 miles of county highway system, broken into arterials, collectors, and local classification of roads. In addition to that, there are 143 miles of state trunk highways, 40 miles of interstate system, and 748 miles of local roads in La Crosse County. There are also 125 local system bridges, that is bridges that are not on the state trunk highway system, 69 of which belong on the county system and are specifically for county highways. The remainder are on the local systems, city streets, town roads, those type of things.
So, as I alluded to, Ron, the state is in a funding bind. But talk to me, give me the overview. Is your county highway program in a funding bind? And if so, is it worse than the state's? Just put it in perspective.
Well, I don't know if I can answer whether it's worse than the state, but we are definitely in a funding situation. Currently, between our general transportation aids and our tax levy and our normal sources of revenue, at this point, that pays for maintenance work on the system in La Crosse County. That pays for anything seal coating, crack filling, mowing, pothole patching, painting, signs, those type of things, snow plowing. If we're going to put new asphalt down, we definitely have to come up with alternative funding measures, either bonding or grants or some sort of creative situation. Jurisdictional transfers wherein the state wants to swap a road is something we've done and explored. Working with the Ho-Chunk Nation is something that we've done and successfully and explored, and that door remains open. Cooperative efforts between entities to prioritize the roads. It's not as easy as it once was to find the funding and get it flowing where we need it.
You've been in this business a long time. How much more difficult now is the funding crisis? You mentioned maintenance, but you have needs beyond maintenance. You have to rebuild and reconstruct. So you've been doing this work for how long?
I've been Highway Commissioner since 1992. Since 1998. Yep. I've been a Highway Commissioner. I've been in Public Works operations since 92, and it has gotten worse over the years exponentially. When I first started, a fair chunk of my time was devoted to project scheduling, project scoping, management of operations, and a little bit of time was devoted to finding funding and those type of things. Today, I would say 40 to 50% of my time is spent following various programs, reaching out to politicians at the state and local level, and as well as the national level, in efforts to adequately fund our operation for the public in La Crosse County.
We're talking here about the infrastructure of your county. Why is it that the infrastructure needs are less of a priority in terms of spending public funds than they were when you began your career in public works?
Well, I don't know that they're less of a priority.
Funding priority, aren't they?
We've got a combination of things that I think has resulted in the pinch where it is today. First off, keep in mind that inflation has been incredible. You know, we've seen increases as high for materials. Seal coating oil, for example, is up 169% since 2005. Those type of numbers are just not something that we can keep up with reasonably. And at the same time, though, you know, we've been operating under levy freezes. We've been operating with no additional funding sources available to the counties or any local government. And the aids from the state have been level at best.
Well, WisconsinEye is based in the Capitol, so we have footage of a lot of elected officials saying we have controlled property taxes, but at the expense of maintaining the highways in your county, Ron? I mean, so people ought to know that, yes, the property tax bill in our homes have been controlled, but what's the other side of that in terms of your highway system?
That is part of the problem. The other side of that is that the decision-making authority for the local units of government, in my case the county board, has been taken away to allow them to make that local decision as to whether they need to increase funding revenue streams off of the property tax into the road system to maintain the road system, which, as we all know, is critical and crucial to economic development and businesses moving forward.
How far behind is La Crosse County in its reconstruction plan? We spoke earlier in your office of a 25-year lifespan of a new stretch of road, but how far behind is your county?
Currently in our 5-year plan walking into 2016, we have got about $90 million of need identified between the enhancements, rural need, bridges, everything, and the improvement side. Now that doesn't include any maintenance. Out of that, we have about $68 million that we have no means of identifying funding for in the next 5 years.
Unfunded needs.
Unfunded needs, and keep in mind that's a snapshot in time. This is a road maintenance, road reconstruction, road condition is a cyclic issue, meaning that snapshot in time, there's $90 million, and a year from now, there may be $92 million, and we're able to fund $2, $3, $4 million tops a year. How far behind? I don't know how many years behind, but we're falling further behind.
Well, this is not a scientific term, but see if it's appropriate. That's a picture, it seems to me, of kind of a house of cards. I mean, at some point, does the highway system fail in your county just because of the funding gap? You have identified needs of 90 million, unfunded needs of 68 million, so all you can identify is 22 million. Where does that lead? Maybe my house of cards analogy is completely wrong, so straighten me out.
No, I think your house of card analogies is actually pretty good. If something isn't done to fund transportation in each individual county, in La Crosse County, in the state as a whole, there are, very poor economic times that result from poor infrastructure. it isn't all about the interstate system. It isn't all about the state trunk highway system. It isn't all about all of those big needs. The first and last mile for products, goods, and services are absolutely critical, and that first and last mile is normally on a local road, whether it's a county highway, a state highway, a town road, a city street, doesn't matter what it's on, it's a local system road. And as those local systems deteriorate, there's a problem there. And it becomes more of an issue as those local systems deteriorate, as the bridges deteriorate, as the roads deteriorate. We locals have to do something to protect them, so then we turn to things like tools like weight limits. And that's not good for economic development and commerce when you're restricting what can and cannot be carried across the surface of a road or across a bridge.
Okay. Now you've brought us to a bridge that you want to show us that needs repairs, so time to look at that?
Time to look at that.
Okay, thank you. Ron, WisconsinEye asked you to show us a couple examples that would illustrate the funding needs in your county. Mm-hmm. Now you brought us to, which bridge is this?
This is County Trunk Highway XX over Halfway Creek.
Okay, and when was this bridge built?
This bridge was built in late 80s, early 90s time frame.
And what does it connect? Why is it critical to the county's economy?
This bridge services several agricultural interests out here. We've got 3 or 4 grain storage operations. We've got a couple gravel pits out here. It's also the shortcut, if you will, to get from 35 and around the village of Holman and up to 35 going on up to Trumpelow.
Do you know what the estimate is of the traffic volume on XX?
We're looking at about 780 vehicles a day.
A day, mm-hmm. Okay. Now, but let's go down. Is that part of the bridge?
That is part of the bridge. That's the rebar.
That's the rebar support?
That is structural support for the concrete that's actually formed into the concrete when the bridge was built.
Well, you're the engineer, I'm not, but this looks scary. This doesn't look safe.
This is not a good condition. What happened here is the salt water and the water off of the bridge has come down in and gotten to the rebar. The rebar is then, as you can see, corroded, and the concrete has delaminated, resulting in the rebar actually falling out and laying into the creek. It is more, drastic along the edges of the bridge than any place as you go internal, because it's the first place that it failed.
Well, but obviously it's still safe, or it'd be shut down.
Well, it is safe for regular vehicle traffic, but we do have a 20-ton weight limit placed on this bridge.
As a result of its condition? As
a result of its condition, which is directly impacting commerce and economic development in this area.
Now, do you have plans to replace this bridge, rebuild it, or have those plans been shelved and this bridge is going to look like this for a few more years?
This bridge, we were actually fortunate enough to get into what's called the local bridge program, which is an 80-20 federal funded, 20% local match to get done. This bridge should be done within the next year to 2 years, depending on timing and construction schedules. We're fortunate with this one. We were able to get it in. I can't say that of all of our bridge needs. Currently we've got 12 bridges that are in need of replacement. This is one of them. And we've got 2 that have been identified out of those 12 that we're sure we've got funding for, but we don't know about the rest of them.
And you say that because of the money you've identified, this bridge will be replaced within 2 years at a cost of about what?
This particular bridge is someplace around that $650,000, $700,000.
Okay. Your other bridges that need to be rebuilt, do they have this graphic rebar dropping from the foundation?
One does. A similar vintage bridge, similar design. That's over on our County Trunk B. That is currently under design, not identified yet for funding purposes. The other bridges have different issues. They're different designs, different vintage bridges. The largest of which is on our County Trunk M, just north of West Salem over to La Crosse River. Very high bridge, very long bridge. I think we're at about 1.5, 1.6 million for that bridge alone.
If you had not been able to identify money to replace this bridge within 2 years, as it continues to deteriorate, what would your department do?
Well, we would reevaluate the load posting that we currently have on it, drop that as needed, until a point in time where it would be deemed to be unsafe for vehicle traffic. At that point in time, we would have had to close the bridge.
Okay. Which would have been a hurdle to a lot of the economic development and traffic patterns in your county.
And the general commuter traffic. Keep in mind the price of fuel at the pump, and these issues not only affect the business people, but they also affect the family trying to make a living, trying to get back and forth and commute to work, get kids to school. Impacts all of those things.
So what's your message, given the condition of this bridge, to not only the taxpayers in your county, but some of the elected officials in Madison?
The needs in the state of Wisconsin and La Crosse County are real. We need to do something desperately with creating a sustainable funding source for all of transportation in the state of Wisconsin. We need to do that. We needed to do that years ago. The needs are not getting less, and the need to establish that funding is here today, and it's going to be worse tomorrow.
Ron, tell us about your highway department. How is it unique? I mean, you border the Mississippi, you border Minnesota. Is this one of the larger highway departments in terms of needs?
People, when they come from Minnesota and they're driving on the interstate and they cross into Wisconsin, they make that comparison. I think it's just natural, but it's. I think at times it's unfortunate because of the things that we can and can't do with mowing and maintenance and that type of thing. But it also gives us a unique ability, if you will, to look at how things are done in another state, to look at how they are managing. Our press in this area pick up news from both Minnesota and Wisconsin. That gives us a little bit different perspective. Size of department, we're a little bit bigger than the average department in this area. We are because, quite frankly, La Crosse is the urban hub for the area. We're the regional hub. We've got a municipal airport, direct flights in and out to various cities. We're a tourism destination. We have all of those things. So we're also a manufacturing city and region and county. And the combination of those things gives us a little bit different perspective than a rural county that doesn't have the population or the industrial base. A urban county that doesn't have the extensive natural beauty for tourism and resources. It makes it a real interesting place to live and work, and gives you a little bit different perspective on the state.
Are your peers across the river in Minnesota, are they in the same funding pinch that Wisconsin County Highway Commissioners are in?
From what they tell me, no. Minnesota seems to be in better shape funding-wise. You see it in the news, I hear it from them. But the other thing that is different between Minnesota and Wisconsin is that the counties in Minnesota are concerned with county roads only, and then of course the DOT staffs and maintains all of their facilities.
Do you think Wisconsin, in terms of funding local highway needs, should take a lesson from Minnesota?
I think it couldn't hurt to take a lesson from a lot of the surrounding states. There's something to be said for various funding opportunities. Craig Thompson's group, the Transportation Development Association, put together some interesting numbers on how different states have looked at funding transportation and what that has meant to transportation, but also what that has meant to to the elected officials that made those decisions. Transportation funding in those states has increased. It's more sustainable than what we have in Wisconsin. It's also interesting to note that those states that did that didn't have this major recall fear or those type of issues. In fact, there were elections following several of those decisions where there wasn't a great big huge turnover in elected officials after those decisions were made.
There's so much emphasis in the Capitol on economic development, creating jobs. Transportation is a large centerpiece of those. Would you argue it's the biggest centerpiece in addition to schools and other factors?
No, I wouldn't make that argument at all. I have had some experience, in the course of my career with reaching out to economic development interests in agencies and businesses and industries. And one of the things that they always ask for are, what are the transportation facilities that are available to me to site in your area? We're lucky in that we have air, we have rail, we have harbor, we have roads. All of those things need work. It isn't just about the roads. My primary focus is of course the roads. But they're worried about that. They're worried about the hospitals. They're worried about the education system. And the lion's share of what they seem to be worried about are public services. And shortchanging transportation, which is a public service, does not seem to make economic sense. In fact, there's been studies to show that for every dollar invested in transportation, that's a $3 return.
Okay, now you want to show us, is this a urban road, a county road? What do you want to show us here?
This is County Trunk OT. This is a rural stretch of County Trunk OT. This is one of our worst pavements. Out of 285 miles of road, we've got 134 miles of rural road that are in need of at least reconditioning, meaning the pavement needs to be ground up, recycled, reclaimed, maybe some gravel added depending on the road, widened out if at all possible to accommodate today's traffic. The structure needs to be beefed up to accommodate today's weights and economic development and freight issues. And then, a new surface put on it. County OT, for better or worse right now, is not in our program as being identified as being fundable.
Ron, this is County OT, as you said. Talk about the breakdown here. What do you see as a professional when you look at this roadway?
Well, first off, this pavement is old. To the best of my recollection, according to our records, we're looking at a pavement that is mid to late 60s in vintage, the last time this road was reconstructed, which isn't atypical. What we've got is a severe block cracking that is starting to deteriorate into alligator cracking. And that's basically due to the pavement is failing, and then there's some base course issues. Some of it's probably being able to be contributed to weight of traffic, amount of traffic that has changed over the years, all of those type of things.
Okay, now how far deteriorated is this? If you had the money, would you resurface this or would you completely reconstruct it? What is needed?
What is needed here is a complete reconditioning. We would pulverize this road up. We may, depending on what the core show for structure underneath, we may add some gravel. We would add a base stabilizing agent. We would mill it up. We would then repave it. My guess is probably in that 4 inches of hot mix asphalt, depending on the traffic and the traffic forecast and the weights, maybe a little bit more. We'd widen it out. Today's traffic, width of agricultural implements, those type of things, we want to get a little bit wider in here if we could. And then we'd probably look at some safety improvements in this particular location. We would look at realigning this intersection. Yes. So that we could have a safer situation for the public when they get to that intersection.
What's your best estimate of the cost per mile to reconstruct something like OT?
This particular road, I'm guessing probably in that $550,000
Per mile?
per mile.
Okay. Well, it's not funded now. What are the implications of it remaining funded for X number of years?
I have no idea when we're going to be able to get to county OT in this section. It's going to continue to deteriorate. We're probably going to end up using some maintenance practices to band-aid it together as much as possible for as long as possible because of the backlog of work that we need to do. We may look at a seal coat, we may look at a variety of things. But bottom line is we're not going to have the money to get to this road anytime in the near future, and it's going to continue to deteriorate. Just like the other 134 miles of road that's in similar situation.
How do you determine which roads are in such deplorable shape that we absolutely have to make it a priority, and roads like this, yeah, it needs to be done, but we just can't pay for it?
Okay. The first thing that we look at as a department when we're looking at road work is we're looking for safety issues. And we're looking at crash history, we're looking at vehicle speeds, we're looking at development issues, we're looking at congestion, but all from a safety aspect. That is the thing that separates the poor pavements. You got all the poor pavements together. That's the first thing that's going to bring something to the top. County OT, we've been fortunate. We don't have an accident history at the intersection. We don't have any accident history on the road. We don't have any of those issues at this point in time. There's some development issues as you get on north on OT here, as you come up toward 35. That would be taken into consideration, but nothing that's been severely problematic at this point in time. The next type of thing that we're going to look at is, quite frankly, what the needs are for the road versus what we can afford to do. So that's kind of the next cut is what can we afford to do out of our highest priorities, and then we'll move things down there. The other thing that we take into consideration locally is local cooperative efforts. Is there a possibility that this piece of OT could be transferred to the town? That would raise it up on our radar because, quite frankly, once we are able to get something transferred off of our inventory, we would reconstruct it, transfer it off. Then that's less maintenance need that we have going down the road. Any type of issues like that. Is there a cooperative effort that the town, or the city or the village wants to put in bicycle pedestrian accommodations? Do they want to take a rural portion of road and make it into an urban portion of road? We take all of those type of things into consideration too, especially if there's a joint project that we can do successfully. It makes sense in Wisconsin to try and work together to get something done.
Don't the towns, villages, and cities have the same funding questions for their streets?
They do. Beyond a doubt, they do.
Are they in worse shape than your counties?
Oh, I don't know if they're in worse shape. They're at least as bad a shape as the counties. All the local units of government are strapped and stretched. The needs far outweigh the revenue streams coming in to address those needs. The public is getting more and more uptight or upset, and justifiably so, with the condition of the infrastructure. There are things that need to be done that we just can't afford to get done. We're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
So if you picked up the phone and asked the town board here, do you want to maintain OT, you can pretty much know the answer?
90% of the time, yes. I can know that the answer is going to be no. Occasionally, we do get lucky and have somebody say that they're willing to do that. We've recently done a couple of those with the Village of Holman, but they have some interesting development going on, some really interesting things going on with TIF funding. Again, a different form of funding for the infrastructure, and they want to create a destination along the corridor that we own. So we were able to work cooperatively with them, come up with an agreement wherein we redo part of the road and they take it over. That doesn't always happen.
Sounds like it doesn't usually happen.
It does not usually happen.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for showing us OT, and this is alligatoring.
This is, if you look, these bigger areas are called block cracking.
Yeah.
And then as the block cracking develops, this gets into this, and this is called alligatoring.
I see.
And it'll get right down into that 1x1, 2x2. And you know, amazingly enough, it will hold together like this for a long time, but then all of a sudden, poof, and then you'll start seeing potholes develop, and it'll go in a quick hurry.
And your budget only has what you refer to as Band-Aids for this right now.
Right now, yeah, we can't afford to do what needs to be done here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Ron, you said sometimes that highway commissioners like you have to be creative. This is an example of being creative, right?
This is an example of being creative. We were able to work with the Ho-Chunk Nation and the Bureau of Indian Affairs to fund a resurfacing project on County Z. Quite frankly, a resurfacing project that without their cooperative effort would not have happened. We couldn't have afforded to do it on our own.
Let's take a look at this project.
Alrighty.
It intrigues me. So Ron, before this was reconstructed, did it look like the stretch of OT that we were just on?
Well, actually, no. This pavement wasn't in as bad a shape as that. This pavement was a little overdue for what we would call a resurfacing or a maintenance overlay.
Okay.
When we build a road, we're trying to get to a 25, 30-year life expectancy with proper maintenance. Part of that proper maintenance is to give it a structural boost, if you will, and to give it a new surface at about that 12, 15-year mark to make sure that it reaches out to that 25, 30-year life that we're after.
So this was rebuilt when? Because you can sure tell the difference in the roadway between this and OT. This is beautiful.
This is gorgeous in the way of a pavement.
What do you call this now? Is this a blacktop rebuild or what?
This isn't actually a rebuild. This is an overlay. This is a resurfacing. This one is actually an ultra thin. We went through and we wedged, meaning we put some blacktop along the edges toward the center, but not all the way to the center to restore the crown so they've got proper drainage. Then we went and we overlaid the whole thing with a 3/4 inch overlay. It's a special mix design, and we just finished this up, I want to say about 4 weeks ago.
And how long a stretch is it? How much did it cost?
This is 6.2 miles long. And the budget on it was $617,000. We brought it in at, I think the total is $586,000.
Okay. Now, the funding is what intrigues me, but you've got a sign over there, so let's carefully cross and talk about that.
All right.
Well, I'm going to say, Ron, I think WisconsinEye viewers will be surprised that our Indian tribes help rebuild highways. Can you explain this creative financing here?
Sure. In the Bureau of Indian Affairs road funding, there's something that's called Indian Reservations Roads. And the Ho-Chunk Nation, being a recognized tribe, but a decentralized tribe, has access to those funds for roadways that they own, as well as roadways that other entities own, that serve and benefit the tribe. There's a mileage perspective to that on the distance from the property and on the path to get to the property. But in a nutshell, our County Trunk Z is an Indian Reservations Road. It's recognized by the tribe. It's recognized by the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and as such, we're able to access that Indian Reservations Road funding for this, and we have 3 or 4 Indian Reservations Road for other roads for specific transportation needs and improvements, which really brings in a unique cooperative effort that, I don't know of any other situation that you can do this in.
You mentioned you brought it in at about $580,000. How much of that came through funds through the Ho-Chunk?
$250,000.
$250,000?
$250,000.
Well, you say that people like you have to be creative. Who found this solution, which rebuilt a chunk of your county highway system?
In a previous position, I had some experience working with the nation on the Indian Reservation roads. Geographically, we have a great Native American history in this area of the state. So it made sense to reach out to the Ho-Chunk and say, hey, are there any roads in La Crosse County? When I came to La Crosse County, and we found that there was. We got the Indian Reservation Road designation, which does not turn over jurisdiction to the nation, but does allow us to do some cooperative, some unique things.
Are there any other Indian Reservation roads in your county that you're looking at maybe
There are.
similar funding?
There are several. This County Z goes out onto what we would call Bryce's Prairie. Bryce's Prairie has a County Z, County ZM, County ZN, County ZB, and those are all reservation roads. A portion of our County Trunk V is a reservation road, and County Trunk XX as well. So those are all roads that we would explore the possibility of funding at least partially with Indian reservation roads. The interesting thing, though, that's happening with Indian reservation roads is with everything else. Now, this is a federal funding stream, but there isn't the money available that there once was because the feds have yet to get a sustainable funding mechanism in place for transportation as well.
That's part of that budget gridlock in Washington.
It is.
Okay. Have you encouraged your fellow highway commissioners to look at some of this tribal money as a source of funding?
I have. And quite frankly, I was not the first commissioner that was able to manage to garner some of this funding. Juneau County, Wood County, Shawano County, Crawford County, Vernon County are in the mix. Clark is in the mix. Jackson is in the mix. There are actually many counties that have the funding available. And I think they're exploring it, but it's on a needs basis. It's a competitive program.
And as a result of the creativity, how long do you expect this roadway to last?
We should be able to get our 30-year life expectancy out of this particular road because we were able to do the maintenance treatment that needed to be done at around the right time.
And tribal leaders were willing to apply for the federal funding?
The application process, yes, they worked with us. They were great to work with, great people to work with. They helped us, they guided us through the process because we were unfamiliar with it and got us there.
Maybe they should help pay for some of the interstates and some of your majors, huh? I'm being facetious. Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is SN. Mm-hmm. This is a major arterial. Is this one of the heaviest traveled roads in the county system, Ron?
This is the second heaviest traveled road in the county system. The first heaviest traveled road that we own is a 4-lane concrete urban section.
Is that in better shape than SN here?
It is.
Okay, so SN is then one of your top priorities, and the goal here is to rebuild it for how long?
Life expectancy when we're done, we want that 25 to 30-year life expectancy. We want it safe. We want to be able to take care of all of our needs.
There's a bridge that needs to be replaced.
There's a bridge that needs to be replaced. And we need to want to look at what the area's needs are in the future, including pedestrian and bicycle accommodations.
Okay, but because this is such an important priority, let's get out safely and talk about it.
Sure.
So Ron, the goal here is to rebuild SN over what distance? How many miles?
This is 2.4 miles long.
Careful the curb, John. Okay.
Watch out for the sign.
And the sign. 2.4 miles. And this SN carries, what's the traffic count?
We are, on this one, we're a little over 2,700 vehicles a day.
So this is a major, and people are going from where to where on this?
People are using this for a commuter route. To the north of us here is Holman, which is, a large village. They come south along here to County Trunk OT, where they will then take OT over to 53 to access 53 and go to points wherever.
Okay.
Some will continue on down south on SN to County S, and take that into the city of Onalaska for their commute to work as well.
Well, elaborating on what you said when we were in the truck, there are several needs here. You have to widen the roadway. I see that bridge. That's in poor shape. And you said you're going to add pedestrian ways and bikeways to this?
There are a lot of needs here, Steve. The roadway, the pavement's deteriorated. We need to widen the roadway out. We need to build it to standards for, that urban arterial standard. We have some constrained environments. The other side of this guardrail here is Halfway Creek, which we can't impact. So most of the widening has to come from basically that guardrail this way to the west. As we get it wider, the pavement wider, the shoulders wider, in addition to that, we're also proposing a multi-use path to take care of bicycle and pedestrian accommodations, especially for Sand Lake Elementary, to get the kids the opportunity to safely get to and from school without bus or parents and that type of thing.
Well, this obviously is a very busy thoroughfare. I mean, we've seen churches, here's a storage area, you mentioned Sand Lake Elementary. So no kid can walk the SN.
I would not like my grandkids out here walking along, and to be honest with you, I personally would not want to walk along the shoulder of SN today.
What's the safety record out here?
Remarkably, we don't have a lot of accident history for people being clipped. It's tight, it's a lot of traffic, and I think, quite frankly, that scares a lot of people off.
I think you said avid bicyclists in this area will not use SN?
They choose to go other routes rather than come up SN because of the amount of traffic and the constrained environments.
Okay, well, now let's go back over the financials. How much is it going to cost to build this up to spec and expand it and make it safer? Okay.
From East Avenue North, which is just south of the intersection that we turned off of OT onto SN, to Hanson Road, which is just north of this bridge, is about a mile long, a little better than. We're at $1.6 million for that. Out of that, we've got $869,000 in federal grant funds. This portion of this road is projected to be built in 2018. The next piece, which is a little better than a mile and a half from Hanson Road up to the north end of the project, Alpine. That is, right now, the dollar figure on that is $2,320,000. And we don't currently have a funding source set up for that. The matching funds out of the $800,000 to match the other $800,000 for the 1.6 locally, quite frankly, we're going to be bonding for. We're going to have to borrow that money. Unsustainable, but it's what we got to do.
So you've got money. It's a $1.6 million project, just the first phase. You've identified 800. You're going to have to bond.
That's how we do all of our work. You've got to be either funded by bond or by grant or some other creative mechanism. We do not have the money. We cannot afford to do improvement. We can't afford to do any new asphalt on the tax levy.
And then talk about the second phase, because you've got a highway that really needs to be upgraded, but you have identified no money for the second phase?
We have no money identified for the second phase. We'll be applying for grants. We will look in creative measures. This project is a cooperative effort. The bicycle pedestrian accommodations in the form of the multi-use path, the curb and gutter, storm sewer, those are primarily on the Village of Holman and the City of Onalaska. They've stepped up and said this is a corridor that needs to be improved. We want to work a three-way agreement with the county, and we managed to put that together and meld everybody's interests. So, while we don't have all of this on the county's back, we have it all on the tax levy back, and we don't have any funding identified yet other than that $800,000 for the first part.
How long do you think it'll take you to assemble a funding package for phase 2, Ron?
Phase 2, if we are fortunate, we will be looking at 2022 at the earliest, and I'm not overly optimistic on that timeline. I would say probably in that 2024, 2026 maybe.
Out that far?
Out that far, out 10 years.
You can't go this way because of the creek. Are property owners generally going to be supportive when you come at them to take a bit of their property to widen?
Nobody likes losing property. The interesting thing that I found at the public information meetings for this project is there were very few negative comments, even from those property owners that we told, you know, we don't know we can't quantify what the impact is going to be to you, but we know because of the constrained environments, we're going to be on that side of the existing road.
Yep.
Those folks recognize the need. They recognize they want their children and grandchildren to travel this area safely. They want to be able to get out here and travel the area safely other than in a vehicle. They want to be able to travel the area safely in a vehicle, and they want to get rid of the congestion that they deal with in the morning and the evening on their commute. So surprisingly, we've had very few negative comments on the real estate, even though nobody's really ever happy about giving property up in the process of eminent domain.
Let's talk about the first phase, the 1.6 million of which you've identified 800,000. You're going to bond for the rest. As a professional and as a taxpayer, is it in the best fiscal interests of this county to bond for the other half of phase one? What's the upside? Is there an upside? What's the downside?
The upside is that we can get the work done now. The downside is that we're going to be paying it off over the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. We take short-term bonds. We have a bond ceiling, if you will, that we have identified that beyond that point, it's not sustainable for us to do that. We're going to have to come up with some different process, and we hope that the legislature can come up with a sustainable process for transportation as a whole, not just counties, not just state, but as a whole, in the state of Wisconsin. There has got to be some changes made. Because you can't continue to borrow when you're borrowing as much as you're paying. It's not a sustainable process.
Is your county bumping up against that bond ceiling that you talked about?
We're getting closer to that equalization point where what we would borrow would be what we would pay. We recognize that. We're doing what we can to downsize that bond. The administrator, the departments, we all work very cooperatively together to try and bring in the best possible budget within the constraints we got. And there are sacrifices that are happening to start backing off of that, but without an outside intervention, without the legislature and the governor deciding we're going to do something sustainable, we're going to do something right for the state of Wisconsin, we're going to be up against a wall in a very short period of time.
So this urban arterial, which is one of your county's greatest needs, this is a pretty good example of the funding dilemma, where you have first phase you have identified half, you're going to bond for the rest, no clue on the second phase.
This is an excellent example of that dilemma.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Ron, thanks for the tour of some of these specific issues. So now comes the wrap-up question. I want you to be king for a day. I want you to solve the funding problem of county highway departments across Wisconsin. If you were king, what would you do?
Well, Steve, the first thing I would do is I would remove transportation from the levy limits. I think that'd be number one. Number two,
By doing that, you just raised our property taxes, but go ahead.
I understand that. I also understand that people usually understand spending money on things that they need, want, and use. I think secondly, I think the king for a day, I think we'd be looking at putting together a sustainable package for funding in the future. And I think there's a lot of things that got to be on the table. I think, the short term, I think we need to look at gas tax. I think we need to look back at gas tax indexing. I think at some point in time, at least nationally, vehicle miles traveled needs to be explored. Okay. Tolling should be on the table. I think 0.5% local sales tax that the counties can decide about whether we should levy that in the county or not. It's dedicated to transportation. I think all of those things combined together as a sustainable package should be put together.
Some of the things that other local governments have adopted is a wheel tax. Has that been considered here?
We have considered a wheel tax here. A couple things against it. One, a lot of our needs are rural, for better or worse, and most of our registrations are urban in nature. So that was one thing against it. The biggest problem, though, that folks around La Crosse had with it is that, quite frankly, this is a wheel tax, a vehicle registration fee, is on cars, is on light pickup trucks. It's not being paid by the vehicles that are doing the damage, the semis, the agricultural vehicles, the quad axles, the dump trucks. All of those type of things do way more damage than a car does, but yet they're not part of that whole funding mechanism.
Let's talk about, well, you mentioned the gas tax, which hasn't been increased since 2006, the vehicle registration fee 2008. But when WisconsinEye covers those issues in Madison, they're seen as solutions to WisDOT's problem. So are you saying that raising the gas tax and vehicle registration fees, something like that, would also help you down on the county level?
I believe so. We're talking about transportation funding as a whole. It's not just about the state highways and the interstate highways. It's about that last mile to get goods and services in and out. Those are local roads, those are county roads, those are town roads, those are city streets and village streets. And part of the funding mechanism that we use are aids and grants from the state and from the federal government. That's all part of that bigger picture of transportation funding as a whole. So no, those are part of the solution for local transportation as well.
And when VMT comes up, it's either you have to self-report when you register, or they're going to put a device in your car that some people think invades our privacy. So explain VMT, how it might work.
The self-reporting is a possibility. The annual reporting on your registration. Annual reporting, Southeast Wisconsin right now has the pollution controls and the inspections for that. Some sort of mechanism like that. That's certainly possible. The vehicle miles traveled by remote, by technology, that technology already exists. Most new cars have the GPS in it and everything. It's a matter of adopting it. I don't think that can be completely done in the state of Wisconsin. I think that's a national level, and then the trickle down comes from the VMT. And there's a bunch of other mechanisms. You got the tolling that may or may not be coming.
But Congress would have to lift that. Right now, federal law, you can only toll on new lanes. Mm-hmm. But now Congressman Ribble was quoted last week as saying this transportation bill, if they ever get it passed, could say states could toll on all major highways. So you see that as another potential funding source?
I do see that as another potential funding source, but it's got to be more than one. There is no one cure-all to fix the situation in the state of Wisconsin, either locally or from the statewide perspective. It's got to be a larger package. Everybody needs to pay a portion of the bill for this one.
Well, maybe as a final question, Ron, if there is no long-term solution, what does the county highway system look like in your county, La Crosse County, when we do this conversation 10 years from now?
With no solutions, the road, that we looked at, we took a hard, in-depth look at OT this morning. I think you're going to see a lot more pavement in that condition. I think you're going to see us having to spend a lot more money on Band-Aid fixes to get us by. I think you're going to see a lot more roads and bridges load posted because we have to protect the infrastructure that's there. Something has to give, and something has to give soon.
Is the bottom line there less economic development?
The bottom line is less economic development. The bottom line is more adverse economic impact.
Very good. Ron Chamberlain, La Crosse County Highway Commissioner, thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.